Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. So honored to have you for this Fizz-tastic tasting. We are so excited to have a lot of fun. We're going to be tasting two amazing sparkling wines, a great champagne, and I'll be joined by one of Sacramento's three advanced songs, the Mad Song, as well, Clifford Burr, to go over one of these great fizzes. In addition to these great sparkling wines and champagnes, we're also going to talk a little bit some fizz facts, dive a little bit more. How does the fizz get put into the bottle? A couple different methods of making sparkling wine, making rosé sparkling, some history, some different areas where sparkling wine is produced. So it should be a lot of fun. And I think we have the Mad Som with us. So let's see if we can pull him up here.
All right.
Awesome. Are you with us?
Yeah, I got my fizz glass.
There you go. You have your fizz glass. I love it. Okay. Well, Clifford, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
I am so fizztastic. You know, it's always a good day when you have bubbles, and that means every day we have bubbles.
Exactly.
So first, before we start, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right. So my name is Clifford Burr, aka at the Mad Som is my on-air handle, and I'm an import specialist for the Estates Group, and I'm also just recently passed the advanced sommelier exam. So joining a elusive company and a few of Sacramento's wine professionals.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're here. So you and we're going to be talking a little bit about Bouvet. So I'm very excited. Also, you get to represent this brand as well.
Exactly,
really amazing sparkling rosé coming from the Loire Valley. So as we know, it's not coming from the Champagne region in France, but a different region that also makes really high quality sparkling wine. So we can't call it a champagne, which of course is why at Fizz we call it a fizz. We call everything fizz. And the Bouvet here is going to be coming from, or the house in Saumur, the largest producer of sparkling wine in the Loire Valley. And in all of the Loire, I think they produce something like 13 million bottles of sparkling wine. That sounds like a typical Tuesday for me. What about you, Cliff?
It sounds perfect to me. So Bouvet is a very cool property. It was founded in 1851 by Etienne Bouvet. And his motto was very purely and simply was excellence. That's why it still is called Brut Excellence. And then in 1933, it was the Montmoussu family who bought it because he didn't have any heirs. But still family owned, even though not by the original family, they carried on the tradition. And so it's on the fourth generation now. So there's a lot of sort of history in that. And I think it's incredible, incredibly well drinking fizz for a nice alternative to champagne at a really reasonable price.
Yeah, no, I'd say so. And it is the second oldest, I don't think I heard you say it, but it's the second oldest sparkling wine house in Saumur. So I think that's a very cool thing, 1851. Pas mal, not bad. So before we open it, if you haven't opened it yet, don't do it. I want to go over just a couple things with you all. When reading a champagne label or a ticket or any wine label, they're all going to be a little bit different depending on the region. And for champagne, for sparkling wine all the time, when you see the main word on that label, that is going to be the name of the house. Now, you might think, well, that's obvious, but in fact, it's not. If, say, you go to Burgundy and you see the main title, that is going to be the parcel. So it's very important to be looking and kind of decoding. So if you look at your bottle, pull it out, everyone, you'll see Bouvet, so that's going to be the name, La Bouvet, Bouvet, Rosé Excellence, so that is the specific type that we're drinking here, they're Brut Excellence, and then it does say Brut. Now, just to recap, some people, for whatever reason, Cliff, I don't know if you found this in your wine just studies and talking to people, but a lot of the time they think Brut, for whatever reason, has to deal with the quality of the wine versus how much sugar is put into it in that final step called the dosage or the dosage. So Brut all has to do with not the quality of the wine, but it has to do with how much sugar is being added in. another kind of misconception is that dry or extra dry is drier than brut, but it is not. And while that's confusing, try to remember. So brut is always drier than extra dry or dry. And at Fizz, most of our Fizz, except just a couple, are going to be brut, extra brut, or brut zero. So from 0 sugar up to 12 grams a bottle. So not much at all. And that's kind of what we recommend, especially if you want to enjoy a couple bottles or a few without any headaches or whatnot. So we know that it's going to be dry. We know that the house it's coming from. We know that it is indeed a product of France. And also, you can see down later that it is elaborated, distributed by Bouvet La Dubé from the village of Saint-Hilaire, Saint-Florent. So that's going to be in the Samour. So this Bouvet is going to be featuring grapes from all over the Loire, not just that specific area. And it will be 100% Cab Franc. Sometimes you might see that, but as you can see here, we're not going to see that. So now let's open this bottle. I want to show everybody here the best way and the most proper way to open it and make sure that they get to keep the most amount of bubbles, which, Cliff, I think you'll be able to, tell us how many bottles are in a bottle.
Well, how about while you're opening it? So one thing when I did the advanced sommelier exam, when I'm opening the Fizz, they ask you lots of questions to put you off. So I'm gonna throw some questions at you while you're opening and see how you do it. Right?
That's not fair at all.
All right, Raymond. So in one glass of Fizz, how many bubbles would be in one glass?
In one glass?
Yeah.
A little over 1 million.
Well, there's 49 million in one bottle.
So let's divide that. Let's see. I can pop bottles. I can't do math.
I threw you a curveball there.
5, is that about 9? 10 million?
We'll go with that. We'll say between 10 and 12 million. So when you're drinking a glass of Fizz, you're drinking about 10 to 12 million bubbles, which is quite incredible.
It's quite a lot of hiccups. So, okay, now everybody, what I like to do when I'm opening my bottles, I like to put a serviette or a towel over it while putting my thumb on top, keeping the pressure. The reason is you don't want your cork to fly off. Also, always holding it from the bottom to just really keep that control. Keeping the thumb on top, holding it from the bottom, twisting very slowly with a tight grip on top, and trying to make it as quiet as possible. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Pretty good?
Nicely done.
Okay, very good. Well, now, of course, one of my favorite parts actually pouring here. So thumb in the punt, if it does have a punt in there, trying to keep your elbow straight, and then just a nice little stream. I like to call it a rat tail, right in the center. We never want to tip the glass. Again, we always want the integrity of the bubbles. And the quieter you open it, the more bubbles will stay in the bottle. The less carbon dioxide is going to escape. So that is always very important. Now, we have this beautiful, beautiful glass of Fizz, beautiful beading. Hopefully everyone has popped their bottle. If you have popped your bottle, popped your cork, please post a little emoji in there so we can see it. We'd love to do that. Okay, so I like to look at the color, and I'd say, what would you say, Cliff? This is like a nice salmon-colored Fizz.
It's kind of a pale salmon would be a good way of putting it.
I would say something pale salmon. And, you know, there's really beautiful beading happening. You see a lot of full stream. It's very lively. It's definitely a lively Fizz. And I believe the Bouvet here is aged for an entire year in the bottle.
So you're talking about the streaming of the bubbles. So one thing I always look for in Fizz is the fineness of the bubbles.
Yes.
How small they are, and you know, generally speaking, when it's made like champagne, the bubbles are much more finer and they're much more uniform coming up from the middle of the glass, and that's always a good sign. And they actually last quite a lot longer as well compared to Cremant style wines.
Absolutely. So hopefully you can see on here, you can see in your bottle a really good fine beading, fine perlage bubble stream that is very reminiscent of a true champagne, again, coming from a really great additional region. So looking at the color, there's no fall. It's really beautiful, light, pale salmon, great beading. Now I like to give it some good movement. You can do it on a surface. Some people, you know, don't realize that you can, in fact, give it some kind of aeration, some movement, so you can really get the aromas. Something I always do here. Wonderful. And so we have some really nice, light, delicate red berries. I'm getting. Cliff, would you say that's pretty common here with the grape that we're dealing with, the Cab Franc?
Yeah, so Cabernet Franc is going to have some of those sort of strawberry notes. And, when Cabernet Franc is made as a red wine, which is usually where you have Cabernet Franc, which is actually worth mentioning how they make a red grape as a rosé, thinking about it. It can have a little bit of slight pyrazinic quality as well, which is kind of a dried herbal sort of taste. I don't think it really comes through in the bubbles, but it certainly comes through in the still wines.
Absolutely. And in the Loire, the Cab Franc is one of the primary varietals that we'll see there as far as a red grape is concerned, correct?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Cabernet Franc is really what is synonymous with the Loire Valley.
Right, and then white grape, Chenin Blanc as well.
So, interestingly enough, so you got the Loire, you've got two ends of it, from the Pays Nantais to the Central Vineyards. The middle part is Chenin Blanc, Cabernet Franc. Pays Nantais is going to be Montmelon, which is for Muscadet. And then on the Central Vineyards, it's more Sancerre. So it's a really interesting, I think it's a really exciting region.
It is.
I love the wines from the Loire.
It is, absolutely. Well, now I think we should give it a taste. We've talked. Hopefully you all are enjoying and having some nice fizz. Really lovely. Bright, fresh strawberry. A bit creamy as well, Cliff, I would say. This has some really nice creamy qualities. Terroir comes through. Very bright, very, very vibrant. I'd love to know what you're tasting, what it's tasting to you. Are you getting berries? Are you getting anything else? Feel free to write it.
Unfortunately, I didn't get my bottle, so I'm going off memory. So I'm going to just have to rely on your taste as well. So I do apologize for that. I didn't get my
I get in both the aromas as well as on the palate. I also even get some peach, some currants, a little bit of cranberry, but really just vibrant, very fresh and nice and creamy. I really get this lovely kind of creamy palate, fizz. So it's really, really lovely. And Bouvet, I think for the value, it's a really incredible fizz that made in that traditional method of champagne where they're aging the wine on the lees in the bottle that we're pouring from, really provides just, I think, an excellent, excellent representation of what can be produced outside the Champagne region. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I can just, just to the quality of it and the taste of it. So I've been to, as have you, to many champagne tastings where you're pouring anything from Comte Champagne, Bollinger Grand Année to, the highest Tête de Cuvées. And I often come back to the Bouvets of the world just to see how they stand up. And I don't know, it was like 6 months ago at a champagne tasting. Went back to the Bouvet after tasting all these bubbles that are, Fizz is $200+ a bottle. It totally stands up, even after tasting some of the best that they make. Yeah.
And what would you pair this with, based on kind of those red berry fruits, some creaminess, bright? So, what would we pair this with?
Surprisingly, Fizz does stand up well. I think people think of Fizz as just special occasions, but it can start and finish a meal. This has a bit more of a body to it, so it would stand up well with any sort of light sort of antipasti. Would stand up really well, believe it or not, with fried foods as well, and it can handle a little bit of spice.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Wonderful. Okay, what else? I know you had some more zingers for me. Hopefully not as much math.
So I'm gonna put you on the
should know about.
Well, you are the chief champagne officer, so I figure you might have a little bit of trivia that people may find interesting. So Marilyn Monroe took a bath. She was a big champagne drinker. So she took a bath in champagne. How many bottles? I'm not sure if there's anybody on. I can't see the chat. But how many bottles did it take to fill up her bath?
It was something like 250 or 320, some large, crazy number like that.
So folklore has it was 350 bottles.
That is crazy. That's a good bath.
That's a good bath.
I mean, I bet you would have loved this Bouvet filled in the bat. I don't know. Would you be upset with a bubble bath of Bouvet? That's a good little alliteration.
Not necessarily at the serving temperature, but it sounds fun, doesn't it? All right, you ready for two more trivia? So there's two famous people I'm thinking of who are synonymous, both British, are synonymous with champagne. One being a movie star, one being someone else.
Well, I know for a fact because I like to pretend that I am the him of champagne all the time. James Bond.
Yes.
For sure. Loved his champagne and the champagne house of Bollinger is featured, I think, in pretty much all of them with James Bond.
I think he drinks more champagne than he does martinis shaken, not stirred, if I remember rightly. So, yeah, James Bond. And then someone else very historic.
Yes, and it was the gentleman that helped bring the glass, the English glass.
That's not the one I'm going for, actually. I'm thinking of someone way more famous, a politician in England.
Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Of course. What was it? I think at 11 o'clock every day was the champagne hour.
11 a.m. he had a pint of Paul Roger, which is why they named the Churchill.
If you're listening and you don't have to work during the day, please have a pint responsibly. It's a picture. If you have a pint of champagne, we'll throw you a bottle of Bouvet. How's that? Of course, as long as you attack us. I think that's
all right. So I got my last one that might be a little risque, but it is Fizz hour, so everybody's over 21. So the original. Maybe you talk about glasses before I ask this question. What sort of the best glasses to drink Fizz out of?
Well, we've seen so many, a revolution, really, right, of glasses for drinking Fizz, for drinking champagne. And so right now, the best glass really to drink champagne from would be what's called a tulip. It's a little bit larger glass. You have height, but you have a roundness where you can get a lot more aromas, which, as you know, the aroma is, what is it? I think it's about 75 to 85% of the taste. I mean, you really need to smell that. And so really, we firmly believe in tulips at Fizz. And in fact, this glass made by Riedel was the original glass made by Krug. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that, no.
So it's one that we firmly believe in. But there's been a lot of iterations of it.
Which leads to the question. So there's so you have the tulip, then you have the flute, and then you have the coupe. Now, what is the folklore of the coupe? A coupe is what is basically what we would think of as a kind of a martini glass, like a cocktail glass, but it was the original champagne glass. And
it's I do know this story. Nobody knows if it's true or not. We can't confirm or deny it.
Exactly.
Lovely little pocket shape was, I believe, they say after Marie Antoinette's bosom.
Exactly. Very eloquently put.
I do try to adapt this and all things appropriate. But yes, it's
nice folklore.
I wonder when that first came about. Who was the first person to say that?
I don't know. It's like I was trying to dig in deeper to the origin of these facts and where they come from, but it's just a lot of. I've seen that one over and over again and heard it, so that's what I'm saying. So before I go, so what temperature would you recommend drinking Fizz? Because that's always a bit of an interesting one.
That is a very good question. Well, it kind of depends on, I think, the youthfulness of it. So to me, I believe a good range is between 40 and 60. If it's a more vintage champagne, I say around 55, 60 degrees. If it's a younger champagne or Fizz like this, I would put this at about 45 degrees. That's my personal preference. A lot of people love to have it really cold, Cliff, but as I think both you and I know, that the colder it gets of any wine, really, the less aromatics, less flavor, less vibrancy that you're going to get. So you get that coldness, but you're not going to necessarily get the aromas. So obviously, I think the higher grade, the more complex the champagne is, the more room temperature you want it. Would you agree?
Yeah. So I think like with most like with you, I think most white wines in places are served too cold, and then but it's better to have it too cold so it warms up.
Yes.
But I would recommend taking your bottle, because your fridge is going to be below 40 degrees, taking a bottle of Fizz out of the fridge and just letting it stand there for like 10 minutes before you open it, just to give it a slight,
yeah. I usually say 10 to 20 minutes after you put it in for a day. Now, the real interesting thing that I was thinking about today, because people ask me, they come into Fizz, people know that they can buy bottles from us to go, which is great. Our club members, amazing way for people to get bottles, stock things away in their cellars, some really great quality things. They asked me, Raymond James, what temperature do I need to be storing these bottles at? Because that's another question in of itself, isn't it? Obviously, temperature for the longevity of wine and Fizz is so important. So, if you're going to do it, what my knowledge has told me as a chief champagne officer, if it's going to be for a year or two, a shorter time, keep it between that 54, it can go up to 65, preferably around early 50s. But if you're doing longer term storage, it needs to be colder. It needs to be a bit colder, around 45 to 50 or so, 52 maybe, because the warmer the temperature is, the more the wine will accelerate and age, and more potential problems. Correct?
No, absolutely, yeah. Storage for long term is, if you have a wine fridge, that's the best way. Otherwise, find an area in your house, the sort of the center of your house, somewhere low, sort of close to the ground, and more not up against the outlying wall, so the sun doesn't get it. Just sort of, whatever the coolest part of your house could be. And also sunlight as well. So keep it,
sunlight. And it's very important, everyone, to make sure you keep bottles away from the sunlight. And especially if you're in a grocery store and you see a bottle, and especially in a clear thing near those fluorescent lights, just kind of beaming at it, be very careful of that as well, because there are definitely things that can happen just by the transference of light into the bottle called light stricken that can kind of give some not so great flavors. So also another fun fact, why most rosés are in fact not in clear glass, correct? To help protect from those UV lights.
Exactly, yeah, it is. But it is so pretty when it's in a clear glass, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's hard to argue with that color. Just lastly, while I have you on, Cliff, and we were talking about some folklore, it's amazing to me, and not negative-wise, I think this is kind of what we've seen in the media and everything, is that some people, when you talk about Dom Perignon, the monk Perignon, believe that he invented champagne. But in fact, he did not. And but there still tends to be so many articles and just little Fizz facts written online that he did. So I think that it's super important to make sure that people know that the Dom Perignon did a lot of great things for wine, but he did not invent champagne, and he never said, "Come quickly, I'm tasting the stars." Double line as that is, and I wish I could steal that line and be attributed to me, but I'll probably have to be dead for 100 years to make that happen.
Absolutely. It was the so my folklore is it's the English who discovered the champagne, but I may be a little biased because the wine would come over to England. It would be bottled in France, come over to England. It would cool down on the voyage, and then come spring, as the weather warms up, the second fermentation would take place. So therefore, the bottles are exploding, and it was the English who actually coal-fired the glass to make it strong enough to hold the pressure. So
it's true. I can't remember the first name of the gentleman that actually created the glass, but the last name is Digby. And which is funny because there's a sparkling winery in England that I visited in December, that's why they chose the name Digby, fine English Fizz, because of being an homage to Mr. Digby, who created the glass to withstand the pressure.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
That's a Fizz fact. Now, I think, 3 times the pressure of a tire? That is how much pressure is in a bottle of Fizz and champagne on average, correct?
Yeah, so it's 3 times the pressure. So think of like a big sort of truck. And if you open a bottle, it can come out this is per reading, haven't tried it, but it's like 40 miles an hour. So thus, you always have to keep your finger over the cork when you're opening it. As soon as you release that wire cage, your thumb must stay on the, that's why your thumb must stay on it. Exactly. I think anybody opening champagne in a restaurant has had a bottle get away from us. I know I have.
It's very easy. Well, you know, I'll tell you, I've had people ask to pay me for them to shoot off the corks in my bar, and I said, well, better buy some expensive bottles if you want to do that. 2 bottles of Comte de Champagne, actually, as a matter of fact.
There we go.
But anyway, well, Cliff, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
We're looking forward to celebrating in person again very soon, popping some bottles and keeping all things Fizz-tastic.
Okay, Mr. CCO, thanks you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much, Cliff.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, thank you so much for that. We're now going to go to another champagne. It's amazing that we have 2 to get to discuss. So 1 Fizz, 1 champagne. And again, just a reminder that in order to be a true champagne, it must come from the Champagne region of France. Now, that doesn't really mean it's superior, but it is going to be from that different region. Second here. Okay, very good. So now we have the Louis Roederer. Now, this is going to be the flagship Fizz of the famed champagne house, Louis Roederer, who does make Cristal, a really absolute amazing bottle. So again, let's read the ticket and let's see what we find. First and foremost, again, what's going to be different on a bottle of true champagne that you will not see on a bottle of sparkling wine is it will say champagne. If it doesn't say the term champagne on the bottle, it's never going to be, in fact, from the Champagne region. So if we look at the tickets, which is what they call in French, or the label, you'll see it does say champagne, that beautiful kind of gold embossing. Louis Roederer, the name of the champagne house, which in Champagne, we don't call them champagneries, but we call them champagne houses. Maison fondée, which means the house was founded in 1776. So something very cool. If ever you want to have a true champagne for 4th of July, there's no better one than Louis Roederer. So it's very neat that we kind of share that history of being founded in the same year, at the same time. And I think they actually roughly were founded in July as well. Now it says Brut Premier, so that is going to be the specific name of the champagne that we're enjoying. And then on the bottom it says A Reims, France. In French we'd say A France, France. So Reims or Reims, that is the unofficial capital of the Champagne region. It is the most important city in Champagne currently. It's where all of the main large champagne houses will be, all of the what they call grand marques, grand makers. So basically you become a grand marque by the prestige of your house, by how many bottles you produce. And so, you know, in Champagne, they're producing about 320 million bottles a year. That is a huge amount, between 310 and 320. So I'd love to see people in the chat post what your guess is on how many bottles that Louis Roederer is making a year. What is your guess? Post. Let's see who gets the closest number. Do we have any guesses yet? No? Okay. Guess though, we're gonna get to it. So while you're guessing, we're going to open this bottle. Again, if you haven't already, which it's hard to pause, take from the foil top to very evenly all around. And then we're going to put our serviette on top again. This is just, again, keeping it very, very, very controlled. So that way the corks don't fly off. You'll see here that right there was going to be the tab of the cage, the wire cage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. And then keeping the pressure on top, firm elbow, twist from the bottom. Twist, twist. That one was a little loud. It wanted to pop its cork. Hopefully you didn't hear it too much. But there we are. So we should never see too much fizz popping out. We should never see too much carbon dioxide, but we have a bit there. Now I'm seeing some guesses. We have 233,480 bottles. So Victoria, that would be impressive. Not that few. Vicky, we have 2.4 million. So it is about 3.5 million bottles. So it's a decent amount, but not as large as, say, Mumm or Veuve Clicquot or Moet et Chandon. That's much, much larger. So again, thumb in the punt. We're going to pour a nice little rat tail right down the center, keeping it very even. So you'll see I'll be able to get to our Fizz logo without having to stop pouring. And the reason is because I'm keeping it very measured. and right in the center. It's very, very, very key to do that. A little twist up, little top, there we are. And these bubbles, I'm sure, hopefully, I mean, it's gorgeous golden color. I hope you're seeing it as beautifully as I am. Really, really beautiful. I mean, the sun just kind of gleams. I would say, I mean, honestly, at first I was thinking it would be more of a straw gold, but I'm thinking this bottle has probably been aging a little bit of time. I'd say this really is more of a yellow gold. What color do you think this bottle is? Write it in the chat. I'd love to know your thoughts. You'll see that this is definitely this beautiful, small bubbles, nice stream, but it's not as, I'd say it's not as many streams maybe as the Bouvet. And I would say the reason why is because this definitely has aged a bit longer. So you taste, well, let's see, let's all discuss. So we see this beautiful color, we see the small bubbles. Let's give it some aromas. Everybody really give it some movement. Don't be afraid. I know it's champagne, but it's not gonna bite. Give it some movement and then put your nose in there. It's fabulous, it's just fabulous. I get a lot of really yummy honey crisp apples, a lot of honey, cream colored. Mike, I would say yes, but for wine terms, we would never use that. We'd use more pale gold, straw gold, maybe some greenish tints, those kinds of things, or yellow gold, rose gold. So think more gold. Who doesn't love gold? If, by the way, probably a good time to buy some gold right now. It's probably down in the market. So smelling some really delicious honey apples. It's round. I get a lot of roundness versus the Bouvet I felt was very linear, very straightforward, very fresh. This to me has a lot more roundness. I get yellow fruit. I get apple, honey, like I said, honey crisp apple, and just round. So let's give it a taste. It's excellent. It's really, really excellent. So why do I say this is excellent? What makes this wine excellent? There's a lot of things. In the mouth, immediately, you have a round feeling. It's not all straight there. It kind of goes all around, coats your mouth. But you still get this freshness. While it's round here, you get this freshness that kind of shoots out. You get a very crisp, yes, Victoria, absolutely. There's crisp characters, a little bit of berry, the notes of apple. You definitely get the apple carry. I 100% agree. But go even more. Do any of you get those kind of aromas of honey, a little bit of honey, and that roundness in the nose? I think of it as kind of enveloping versus, say, just straight that way. So you get some of this, but it's this as well. Kind of think of a hose when you put your thumb on it, and it shoots out straight, but it kind of also goes all over. I really think Louis Roeder Fruit Creme does that. So as you continue to enjoy it, you'll also notice kind of some chalky minerality. Granny Smith, I agree, but not tart. A lot of times when we think of Granny Smith, we also think of tart champagne, but in fact, that's not what we have here. So we have a little bit riper fruit, I would say. Now, a little bit of fun fizz facts about Louis Roederer, which, by the way, it's not Roederer. I always thought it was, as someone who speaks French, and I was heartbroken to be told it's Roederer, really much more so you can pronounce the R. They do have the royal warrant of the Queen, so that's one of a few champagne houses. Always have focused on very high quality from the beginning. And what makes them famous that we all know the name for is, of course, Cristal. Now, what's interesting is Louis Roederer II was asked by the Tsar of Russia in 1876, Alexander II. He was already a big lover of Louis Roederer champagne. In fact, Louis Roederer's premier and #1 client was Russia, was the aristocracy in Russia. And so he said, Monsieur Louis, Monsieur, you give me such great champagne. I love what you have to give me, but I want something more. I want something better. I want something more exclusive, more exclusive. And so Monsieur Roederer said, okay. So he created the first ever prestige bottle, also known as a tête de cuvée, head of the cuvée, privately for the Tsar. So the very first commercially available tête de cuvée was Dom Perignon, but the first really before that privately available was Cristal, which really is truly a great bottle. But the funny thing is back then, champagne was made very sweet. So for all of you sweet tooths out there, Carrie, I'm looking at you, you probably would have loved Cristal back in the day. It had probably in 1876, 150 grams in one bottle. Imagine, look at a can of Coke or your favorite chocolate bar, and see it probably has about 23 grams. So imagine over 200 grams in one 750, one regular size bottle. What was unique though was when the bottle was presented to him, it was a true bottle that was made of clear crystal or cristal, which is hence where the name came. Also given without a punch, so it is indeed flat. When you feel the glass, it has to be even stronger, and that's actually why there is the punt, is so that way you can have the strength, but you have to have the bottle much stronger if you're going to have that flat bottom surface that Cristal has. So getting back to our dear friends at Louis Roeder and getting back to this bottle, producing 3.5 million bottles. And as you do notice, you get that creamy smoothness across the palate, as Victoria said. It really is. It's so balanced at every stage. Nothing's shooting out, right? The acid isn't shooting out independently of the fruit. The fruit isn't showing more than the vibrancy and the acid. The age isn't showing more. You're getting a very well-rounded, very stunningly focused champagne. Focused, precise, but it's generous. I would really say, this is a very generous champagne. I really do get on that finish, which actually is pretty generous. It's a very generous champagne. Some chalky minerality. And the reason is, Louis Roeder owns about 240 hectares, which is about 240 times 2.2. Someone do the math. It's about probably 600 acres. What's amazing is 127 of those hectares are going to be Grand Cru. That is amazing. The fact that this Grand Marque owns that many vines as well as Grand Cru vines is exceptional. And a huge part of that is going to be planted in the Côte Blanc, which is known and prized for their Chardonnay. And that is what's giving that chalky minerality. So before I go further, I would love for you to post an answer to this question. What grapes do you think are in this bottle? There's 3 grapes in this bottle. What grapes do you think make up the champagne, and what do you think the percentage is? So when you taste, do you find that one is outshining the other? Do you find it's really all balanced and blended? What is showing up to you? You answer, and I'm going to drink a bit more. Hopefully you're okay with that. I will tell you, the chalk gives away a little bit of the answer. And it really just is so good. I just really can't. Okay, well, while you're deciding, I will say they do a blend of the 3 primary champagne varietals. And I'm seeing if anybody has any guesses. So I'll give 5 grapes. What 3 are going to be in there? We have Chardonnay, we have Cab Franc, we have Sauvignon Blanc, we have Pinot Meunier, we have Pinot Noir, and we have Chardonnay. I don't know if I said Chardonnay. And then one more, Cab Sauvignon. So out of those grapes, what are the 3 grapes that are going to be in here? I'm sure people can guess at least one of them. Well, while you're thinking, I keep saying I'm just going to keep drinking, but I guess I'll share with you. So you're going to have the 3 primary champagne varietals of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. 40, 40, 20. 40% Chardonnay, 40%. Oh, there we go, Vicky. I mean, yeah, it's almost like you read my mind. 40% Chardonnay, 40% Pinot Noir, and 20% Chardonnay, or 20% Pinot Meunier. So it's oh, Christina, very good. Yes, you are all correct. Chardonnay. Chardonnay is going to give it that chalkiness, that it's going to give it that forward vibrancy that you do get on the palate. Pinot Noir, I think, gives it a bit more of the body. Pinot Meunier gives it freshness, gives it that fruity quality. So what else makes Louis Roeder so amazing is that the chef de cave, the head winemaker, Jean-Baptiste, has been with the house since 1989. An absolutely incredible length of time for a winemaker to be with one house. And, you know, he started, again, kind of sim winemaking. And then in 99, he became the chef de cave, the head winemaker. And it has been his mission to continue to revolutionize champagne, to continue to to make it better, and just more and more incredible, truly. And how he does that. It's not in the cellars, it's not in the blending, but the vineyards. Jean-Baptiste is truly a believer that in order to get the best wine, it starts in the vineyards. So that means that he is doing a very strict regimen. Over 110 hectares are already now 100% biodynamic. A huge amount of that is biodynamic certified. The rest, or many others, are going to be organic. So biodynamic would encompass organic, and then organic's a little bit below that. So they're going for really allowing the vines and the terroir, the earth, to be in its most natural, healthy state. He's very big into not having pesticides, Jean-Baptiste. He definitely believes the pesticides will harm the champagne and hurt it. So he's all about as natural as possible. Their goal, or Jean-Baptiste, is in about 10 to 15 years to be 100% biodynamic, which is, as they say en français, incroyable. It really is incredible. And it's something that I think lends itself to the quality of this wine, the structure of this wine. And in fact, the majority of this is going to be estate-owned, meaning that this will be coming from most of their 240 hectares. That being said, they did not invest much in buying acres and vineyards in the Marne area. And the Marne area is where they have very healthy Pinot Meunier. The sandy soil and the clay is great for that small little red berry that's very, very fruity. So the 20% of this is not estate, but they have very, very specific and strict regulations to make sure they're not using certain pesticides and major controls. So a lot of the times, chef de caves will be very instrumental in the cellar. And that will be their domain. That'll be their home. That's what they're going to control. Not so much the vineyard. There's a lot more vineyard managers, vineyard executives, but Jean-Baptiste majorly oversees that. And he has several of his winemakers as well, that the vineyard managers, they're all enologists. They all are experts in the grapes and the winemaking because they know the quality is going to truly come from the vineyard. So again, when you taste this, eyes closed, please. Do you taste quality? Do you taste refinement? Do you taste finesse? Do you taste roundness? What hits you? What are the primary things? Please post them in the group. I'd love to know. Another thing that makes them so unique, as especially large house. Remember, this is a large house. To make over 100 hectares, about 250 acres, biodynamic is mind-blowing. It's unfathomable. People say, Raymond James, do you want to make wine? Do you want to make some Fizz? And I said, Fizz, no, I just want to sell it. I'm not smart enough. I'm not a Jean-Baptiste. I'm just a kid from Fair Oaks who pops bottles. That's about all I'm qualified to do. But it's, again, these geniuses in Champagne like Jean-Baptiste who understands what it takes. And another thing, they're very into not having clones of grapes, not having clones of rootstock, all this stuff. So apricot, Christina, I'd absolutely agree. I think you definitely get some of those fruits, some of those stone fruits. So another thing they do is they have their own vine nursery. Now, they're the only large house to have this, and it's really absolutely amazing. So they're basically propagating their own vines, their own clones. That way they are as close to the terroir's natural environment as possible. And the idea was to go back to an earlier time in the 20th century, really just quality winemaking with a lot less additives, herbicides, pesticides, a lot less human interference. And that's really the goal of biodynamic, less human interference. How can we bring it back to nature and let nature really run its course? So it's very, very important. So my next question for you, I want everybody at the ready. Oh, Eric Bahamundi, God bless him. He just joined the chat. He just graduated from college. So congrats to you, Eric. Great guy. Why is there still a premium on champagne when California may arguably have better vineyards? Well, that's a loaded question, Eric, and I don't have a gun. But I will tell you that the vineyards in Champagne are unlike anywhere else. And the reason why is the bed of chalk that is hundreds of millions of years old. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. It's Kimmeridgian limestone made of basically ancient sea creatures, which is wild to think that's what this chalk is made of. But that's also what gives even this the personality of the chalk that it does in Champagne in general. You're not going to get that type of minerality that you would with an American sparkling wine. That being said, there's incredible American sparkling wines that we feature at Fizz, and we've sold at Fizz in our club. Which, speaking of, if you really want to discover more champagnes, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, but more small producers, incredible production champagne, join our club at fizzandsack.com. I think we have the link posted for you as well, and we'll post in just a second. But that is where I am sourcing bottles myself, going all over the world to find really unique bottles and offerings for the Sacramento region, for California at large, because I believe in celebrating every day in a better way than with Fizz. So my next question is, how long is this bottle aged in the cellars? Now that means it's resting in the caves underneath Champagne, underneath the city of Reims, and it's resting on its side with the dead yeast basically giving age. So how long is it in fact aging in cellars? When you taste it, does it taste like it's a year old? Does it taste like it's 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old? Give your initial impression. We'll kind of talk about what those different agings mean, because they really all do mean something different, and they really all matter, especially depending upon what type of celebration you have, what type of event you have. You really want to know. So beautiful. I even get white flour. I don't know if anybody is going back. Just revisiting. I mean, I get the chalk even more so as it's warmed up in my bottle on the nose. I get more chalk. I get more white flour. Those apricots really are coming in, Christina. God bless you. I agree with that. But I'm just loving that chalky minerality, which Roeder is so well known for. But elegant, 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 elegant. Victoria, I don't know if I know who you are. I don't think you're part of our club, but you really should be. We're gonna contact you because you're really good at this. 4 years is not far off. So it's actually going to be a minimum of 3 years in the cellar. What makes that so impressive is that for non-vintage, it must age minimally in champagne for 12 months, and then an additional 3 months after it's been disgorged, where they put in the final cork after that kind of sleeping, aging period. Want to make sure, though, that we have that right link up there. I see a really long thing, so want to make sure that we're getting that link up. So just, we'll check that out. Okay. So in champagne, it must age minimally 12 years on the lees, and then another 3 months post. Most are aging it, or 18 months minimally, and another 3 months. However, this is aged the minimum for a vintage champagne, 3 whole years, 36 months, adding a lot of complexity, a lot of depth. So it's really making for beautifully structured. And again, this beading is just really gorgeous. It's very elegant. And so it's aged 3 years minimally, and then it's aged for about 6 months post disgorgement. So post that kind of sleeping age period with the lees contact. And the lees are the dead yeast. The yeast with sugar, the second time around, once it's become wine, is what makes it champagne. Blows your mind, I know, but that's it. That's it. It's not complicated. You make it into wine by adding yeast to the natural sugar that's in there. It becomes alcoholic, alcoholic fermentation, it becomes wine. Then after that, you just add more sugar, more yeast, boom, goes the dynamite, and you have champagne. Of course, it's going to take a few weeks, and then it's then going to age to where that yeast dies, creating autolysis. Those enzymes get built in, making that wine complex. And did we have a question?
We had a question from Lori.
Yes.
She asked, should we store our champagne on the side or upright?
Great question, Lori. That is very much up for debate. It's not conclusive at all. It's not conclusive. I'd say if it were aging on the lees with the dead yeast, you want it on the side, because if you had it on the bottom, it'd be here. It would take a lot longer for it to get enveloped everywhere. But once it's aged, the biggest thing once you have it in your cellars is to age it at a low temperature. That's what matters most. Once you buy the bottles from Fizz Champagne and Bubbles Bar at fizzandsack.com or join our club, put those bottles in your cellar, put those bottles in a cold place, dig a hole in the ground and throw it in there and put sand on top of it, bury it. You know, it's probably worth more than money right now in the stock market. That's my recommendation. But whether or not you stand it up doesn't fully matter. To be honest, it's kind of like a quote-unquote superstition. I will say in my personal cellar, I do lay them on the side. But again, I make sure that they are around 45 degrees in my cellar. Very, very important, that temperature if you want to age wine. Again, so many of the champagnes you'll get in the Fizz Club at fizzandsack.com are age-worthy wines that I can't recommend enough. Wines that you're not going to see in supermarkets, other stores. It's really incredible. Store them sideways simply because they can fit more bottles that way. That is, yeah, I mean, again, depending on how you want to store, you can store whatever fits more. You know, you have 5 bottles, you have 12 bottles, you know, maybe you can bowl a strike. You have 300, maybe you want to put them on the side. So it really depends to you. So getting back to this beautiful wine, again, we said it aged for over 3 years. What else makes this wine so special, and Louis Roederer is so special, is that out of all of those hectares, they have about 410 plots, 410 parcels. All of them are vinified, turned into wine separately. What that does is gives a palate. And champagne is all about taking your palate and blending. Champagne is the art of blending. And clearly this is a beautiful blend. It's over 40 different parcels blended together to make this bottle. And wine from 5 different years. Latest vintage, vintage before, vintage before, vintage before. 5% of the latest vintage that goes into this will be aged in large oak casks. Another 5%, 5 to 10%, 10% of the reserve wine that's been set back these different years, blended together, and 10% of that will be aged in large oak barrels. So total, you could say you have about 15% aged oak. But what I love is that the oak doesn't impart any oakiness. You know, we tend in California have this love affair and hate when it comes to oak. We love it or we hate it. We love it or we hate it. I think the best use of oak is when it can add texture, it can add roundness, a good mouthfeel, without imparting too much of itself. You know, you don't want it to be that pushy, messy friend who shows up at the club an hour late and a little fizzed up, right? That's not what we do in champagne. It's not how we do it. We do it, they come in elegant, they look beautiful, they're a dime, classy, and well-respected. That's how oak should be, in my opinion. You can quote me. So let's taste it again. On the nose, I get a little bit of that oak. As it warms up, now I get a tiny bit of butterscotch. I don't know if anybody else gets that. I do, and it's beautiful. But I still get that kind of chiseled chalk. Think of chalk. Think of true chalk, that kind of chalkiness. Even a bit warmer. Mine is probably about 55 degrees. It's run gorgeously, absolutely gorgeously. The minerality, the roundness, it's really a beautiful, beautiful champagne. How many of you, please post a little hand, post an emoji, are liking this champagne right now? Or feel like you're learning something, so I don't feel like I'm talking at you and being a silly person. But I do think that this wine really is so generous, it's fresh, it's elegant, it's structured, but has finesse. Now that's a lot. And to create a wine that encaptures that, you have to do a lot. Again, the amount of work they do in the cellars, with the blending, separately, oak aging, the amount of work they do in the vineyards, biodynamic, organic, certification, the amount of work they do with their only small amount that they buy, and producing still 3.5 million. To have quality where you're producing 3.5 million isn't easy. I'll be honest, most people believe that non-vintage, so the blended champagne, different years of large houses, grand marks, tends to be lower quality. It's solid wine, but usually, right? However, again, they have over 125 hectares of Grand Cru vineyards. So that is included in this. And you get a non-vintage champagne that is tops, as they say in French, or anywhere, probably. But the other cool thing is just a little bit of the history of the Brut Prep. Keep drinking. I'm just going to keep talking because I'm just loving this wine so much. I'm sure you all too. So as many people know, or as I said, the Russian family, the Tsar, they love Cristal, they love Louis Roederer. They're just buying left and right. I mean, who the Fizz wouldn't? If I had a lot of money and I was a royal fan, that's all I buy. That's kind of all I buy now. And, you know, I buy it for myself. But anyway, so they were buying it from Louis Roederer, the sons. Louis Roederer, the second, died, sadly, about 10 years after making Cristal, and then his son, Louis Roederer, the third, took over. What all happened in 1917 or 1918? Russian Revolution. Royal family massacred. Sadly, Bolsheviks took over. So Roederer, again, the biggest client was Russia. and they had bills to pay. People got to get paid. But I'll tell you what, the Bolsheviks weren't about to pay the imperialist tab back to France, back to more kind of imperial bourgeois. So now Louis Roederer was on the verge of bankruptcy. Had, they don't even know, but so much debt because of the Russian royal family that hadn't paid. They were all massacred. Nobody could pay the bills, so they had to sell it. They had all this sweet stock too. It's so sweet. Russians, out of everyone in the world, liked the sweetest champagne sparkling wine. They loved it sweet. They call it confectionery sweet. So, fun Fizz fact, they had to sell off all their stock, and they kept searching for a buyer, searching for a buyer. Ironically, who would have thought in 1920, someone from South America bought it all? They bought it all. I'll tell you what, if there's, I'd like them to sponsor me, Fizz 3, South America, Argentina. I'll be there, Brazil, wherever. Let's have some games. I can learn FIFA. It'll be fun. But you know, that's the thing. So after that, though, of course, then came or right after that was World War I, right? Decimated France, horribly so. Decimated. The vineyards, so many wars were fought or battles were fought around the Champagne region, and they have been for centuries. So the head owner of Roederer at that time said, you know, we've only been doing vintage champagne. We need to create a champagne that's sustainable through all these issues, where we have reserve wines that we can blend, so we have a consistent bottle throughout the years, regardless of what happens. Because he had that forefront that, you know what, we continue to have issues and wars. Let's find something so we can keep selling product. So Group Premier was created in, I think, the 1920s as a way of having a non-vintage champagne that could continue. So it's one of the first non-vintage champagnes. Very special champagne, as we continue to see. Wonderful. So are there any questions so far as we've been going through Louis Roederer, champagnes of history, some anecdotes that you all have questions about what we're tasting, what we should taste, what the Fizz is happening? Please feel free to ask, because, you know, people definitely feel that champagne is a confusing thing, but that it is, you know, it's unreachable. We really believe that champagne is something to enjoy every day. It's about celebration. I believe there's something to celebrate every day. If you're alive, you've been given breath in your lungs, that's the reason to celebrate. Just why I have a glass of champagne every day. Now, yes, Baby Cristal. Incredible champagne, incredible value. I agree. I mean, again, the fact that we're able to offer this, and in the club, you were able to get this deal. What was this deal? It was a really good deal. What was the deal? No. Wow. You all got this for 60. I was going to say 75. Shame on me. And they got 2 bottles. Well, I'm telling you, sometimes the Fizz gets to me, guys. Maybe I'm having too much Fizz. But again, yes, a very good deal to have such quality. One of the other things I did, let's see, what would this Fey food pairing be with this? I'll be honest with you. This seafood. Give me oysters. If you have oysters at home, please share. If you have caviar, please share. We actually sell caviar, so buy our caviar. Don't share caviar you have. We have a great deal on caviar, actually. Sterling Caviar, fizzandsack.com. We have the link to post. But so caviar, seafood, oysters. I really want some scallops with this. Maybe in a Pernod sauce, a cream sauce would be delicious pairing with this. Even some pinwheels with some butter, because the butter actually, I think, would accentuate the minerality in this. Something with a little fat, not meat fat, more cheese fat, some Gruyere or cheese souffle would be delicious. Or honestly, the bottle by itself in the back of a car. Well, you know, it doesn't, if you're looking at the ocean, who cares? It's all really good. That's what I'd say. But I wanted to touch just lastly before we close on the fact that I think Courtney brought up that this is considered the baby Cristal. And there's reason for that. So I'm going to pour another glass as I taste, or as I tell you the story. So again, Jean-Baptiste, I haven't gone to meet him. Our club is supposed to go to Champagne in July. We're supposed to go to Louis Roederer, and I'm very excited about that. And if we don't go, I know I'll meet with him sometime in the future. But again, one of his things that he's done to add complexity, and it's amazing how just a tiny bit adds so much. But Jean-Baptiste decided for every bottle of this beautiful Fizz to add 1 drop of reserve wine that is Cristal. Truly, as dramatic and romantic as that sounds, there's one drop. Oh yes, the Goucher, totally. There's one drop of Cristal in every bottle of Brut Premier. So that is amazing. So again, that is the last part. Once the bottle's aged, it's done and added with the sugar mixture. They put that in the very end, twist it or shake it up, sell it for another 6 months, and then we're drinking it now. Though this, I think, has aged. If you're enjoying a bottle from Fizz, you can see what it says on the line here. Mine says on the back of the bottle, L048978, etc., ends with 17. I believe that this bottle was disgorged in 2017, which means 18, 19, 20. So it's had about 3 years post-disgorgement. So while it's fresh, again, it's generous, it's round. And that drop of Cristal, I tell you what, it just does the Fizz and trick. On the nose, on the palate. I really intended to spit today, but I'm not a quitter, guys, and today's not that day, so we're not going to do it. But again, champagne is all about joy. It's all about celebration. It's all about quality, and Roederer expresses quality bar none. And it's something that it's a pleasure for me to share with you, to share really good quality champagne. And I hope that I've been able to bring some information, some education, some physics 101 to you, because I really love getting to share this with you. Sacramento, as you know, is my home. I'm born and raised here. Fizz is the only champagne bubbles bar in the region, the first champagne bubbles bar. And we do have an amazing club where you can get bottles that I source myself, choose myself from my various travels around the world. So go to fizzandstack.com to learn about that. You can buy bottles from us online, fizzandstack.com, and have shipped to you, have curbside pickup, or we can even deliver if you're in the Sacramento area. And we do have a few specials for Mother's Day. It is coming. And for me, I have so many mother-like figures that are so important. But actually my mom, hashtag Son of the Pie for watching. But anyway, so these are some really great bottles, again, that we have some extras of right now. Really great rosés. Highly recommend getting on our website, fizzandstack.com. A non-fizz rosé that I love, JNSQ, made by Justin Winery in Paso. If you like Justin, you love this. It's going to be a rose style. Chateau de Bleny, if you go to our website right now, fizzandstack.com, you'll see an amazing price. I think I put it at 60. It might be less. I don't know. So I hope it's not less, but it might be. I'm just too generous today. A little too fizzed up. But really amazing. I was supposed to stay at the Chateau in April, so it didn't work out. An amazing grower champagne house. The Bouvet, we have some extra bottles, I think at $20. Amazing. Now the Piper, we're doing a deal, and you get the 2 Piper glasses, which are amazing. Again, these are the best shape to drink champagne from. Even though they're high quality plastic, they're perfect. Have them at the pool. I took these when I went to Costa Rica in August for my 12 bottles of champagne for the week. And with that, you'll get the half bottle of Piper and the 1785 that you can only get at Fizz, not available in stores, truly. They're Brut, but it's a 1785. Unless it says that, it's not the real deal. So again, everybody, I am so honored to have you today. It's been a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us a message. Go to our website to learn more about our club. And please like this, share this with your friends. And thank you so much for being part of the Fizz family in Sacramento. So lastly, cheers to you, and have a Fizztastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.